This is how positional strategies work. Let's the pawns. You should try and keep your pawns connected. Pawn islands are when a file separates pawns. Like F through H is like for white, the F through H file is a pawn island, because these pawns can be connected. And also the D through A file is a pawn island. Only the E file separates them. White has 2 pawn islands. Black has 3 pawn islands. With a pair of pawns on A7 and B6, and double pawns on D7 and D6. Pawns on F7, F5, and G7. They're gonna have a hard time defending the pawns because their king has to be the one defending them. That's why white has such a big advantage, even though the kings are both still on the back rank and material is still equal. Like, I'll just play a couple moves out. It's very difficult to defend this position as black, because it feels like white has a lot more pawns than they actually do, because black's pawns are doubled. So white just has that's why white has a huge advantage here. And having passed pawns are good, which we'll view in the next example. This position is winning for white because they have a pair of connected passed pawns. Like, if they push this pawn, apparently they lose a lot of advantage, but they still have a huge advantage. Especially because the rook separates the king from the D file. If the black tries something like this, you can actually just ignore your rook and push this pawn. Or take your rook, then use queen. You queen with a check, so they can move your king, and you can take back the bishop, and you're easily winning. Actually, instead of taking the bishop, if you want, you can take the rook. Which apparently you could have done on move 1, and I did not notice that when creating this position. So alright, now you can't take the rook anymore. It's magic. He just push this pawn, and so black moves his king so the rook can control the file. Like, black's gonna have to give up the bishop for a pawn in order to survive. And so rook goes there. White comes off with the bishop. Well, that's a discovered check. Yeah, you just lost your pawn, but you're still winning here. Let's say something like this. Just march your king over. And you can use your bishop to cut them off. And just go down here. Here. He goes back. This is an easy win. You can use passed pawns as a distraction while you go attack on the other side of the board. And connected passed pawns are even better. If you can, you should put your knight on an outpost. It's how the best use the knight. And the reason is, an outpost is when a piece is protected by a pawn, and it cannot be kicked out by a pawn. Your knight on d5 cannot be kicked out by any pawn, and is protected by the pawn on e4. And it is just controlling so many squares. It is an absolute monster. Like, that's why white has such a huge advantage, even though the material is equal. It's like, let's say, there's a simple move like king g2. Just get your king out of the way, get him safe. This would be a blunder because of this. Your knight's just an absolute monster. And try and defend. Well, just bring your pieces in. Just infiltrate with your pieces, or maybe something like this. And you can take back with the pawn, I guess. And like you just have a great game. Because your knight's in such a powerful location. They cannot even do this because that just drops their knight. And they have to play something like this. They can't even play something like that. Actually, they cannot even play something like that. Because it use like slowly just break their position apart. Like that. You can just trade that. Like, even though it's a strong knight, normally do not do that. You slowly break their position apart. Because your knight's just controlling their squares. They're just controlling so many squares. Put your knight on an outpost. And another thing, Do not put your knight on the edge of the board. Do not put your knight on the edge of the board, because here it only sees two squares. B3 and C2, and one's covered by a pawn. Like that's why black has such a huge advantage. And apparently the position's in the balance, but that's Stockfish saying that. Humans aren't going to know how to play here. They're just going to lose all their pawns and lose the game, because their knight just simply cannot get in the game. The knight just simply is going to have a very hard time getting in the game and becoming active. And you have to play completely accurately to survive here. So, but if we change position a bit, so that your knight's in the center instead. Look, this position's a lot easier. If they try, it's my turn. Like you can kick black's knight out. Their knight is a lot less squares to go to. And you have to be very careful, because if they're not careful, you can take this pawn, and you have two passed pawns. Like, they take this pawn, and this is just a draw. Like, it's a pretty easy draw. So that's why you don't put your knight on the edge of the board. The final thing about knights is when to trade them for bishops. Like here, you have a huge advantage. But all your pawns are on dark squares, similar to black's bishop. So if you play a move like this, well, you're gonna lose after something like this, or black could sneak around and just start to take all your pawns. Like they give you this, they give you this one, but you're gonna take everything. And you're just gonna lose the end game. And yeah. Because that pawn's just unstoppable. Like, if they make that mistake, then you're gonna win. Then you might be able to save it. You can get a knight, or they can pin your knight, and you're lost. Yeah, but you were winning. Instead of that, take the bishop, and then stop this pawn. They go after yours, you take theirs. They take yours, start pushing your pawn. You get a race, but you win the race. They push this pawn, you use your queen. They push their pawns and bring your king. Be careful, they're threatening to promote a pawn. Pin the pawn. They go here, take this pawn. They block their pawn, bring the king over. The king's forced to go here and checkmate. So that's when you trade your knight for a bishop. Like, for bishops, if you have a light squared bishop, you want to have your pawns on dark squares. So your bishop can move in between them, and the pawns form a blockade on the dark squares. The same is true in reverse. Like, this position, Stockfish says it's about equal, but it's not easy to play as black. Because white just needs to trade the pawns and open up the position. If you look at the eval, white's actually getting a bigger advantage. Do this, and white's just opening up the position for their bishop. They always have a threat to sneak around. Takes. They give you this one, but you can actually sacrifice your bishop here, because if they take, you take this, and this pawn in game is completely winning. Let's say they move the bishop somewhere random, that hangs this pawn, and you're still completely winning. Like, they completely messed up this endgame by blocking in their bishop. So do not do this. Another good thing about bishops is you can fianchetto them. So when you place them on G2, B2, G7, or B7, from there they are cutting the longest diagonal. Like, here white's bishop on G2 is an absolute monster. It's the reason white has their advantage. And compared to black's light square bishop is just black's light square bishop in this position is so inactive and useless. Like, let's say they try and move their knight forward, Wait, it's my turn. Like, White can just shut their bishop out of the game and start a same side attack. I took this position from the English opening. If they're trying to attack the queen, you just move it. And let's say they try and play a move like this, try and prepare to get their bishop back in the game. Well, you can actually just take this pawn, try and attack, just run the bishop back. And this looks a bit scary, but you can easily just move your queen back. And you can strike on the king side. While Stockfish gives this position, while Stockfish evaluates this position as about equal, it is not easy to play as black. You are playing full back rank defense. You're going to have to play super carefully as black to survive here. Unless white plays that. Like, and you just get a very powerful attack. Like, that does not work because that falls checkmate. But like your bishop on g2 is the reason you have an advantage. With rooks, you want to put your rooks on an open file. Like white did that here. It's basically symmetrical position. Like, and you want to put your rooks on the 7th rank, like here. And 2 rooks on the 7th is even better. Like trade. It's about equal, but like black's gonna have to be careful here. Like this pawn in the game is likely going to be a draw, but you want to try and put your rooks on the 7th rank, so then some black's pieces are stuck defending the pawns. And you also have a space advantage here. Like rook d7 or something. Try and challenge your rook for the open file. I say you bring your king over to protect. Trade. This check's nothing to be afraid of. You just move the king. Try and bring theirs. Well, then they start losing pawns. You continue to march the king forward. You're also keeping your opponent's king chained down to the 8th rank. And while this looks a bit scary, like you're both just taking all each other's pawns. But in the end, you have the lead because you got the first move on them. Now you're the one that can start pushing your pawns, and they are behind. Their pawns are too slow. They have to put the rook here to try and stop it. Well, now you just bring your rook over here. They continue trying to push, but you queen first in your way. The way to use your queen, they're a stronger combination of rook and bishop, so put them on open files. And if you're weak on certain colored squares, like you're weak on the light squares, it'd be wise to keep your queen there. This is a position I took from the Muzio Gambit. And basically, if white trades queens here, then the engine hates them. Because white sacrificed a knight, and now they just murdered their own attack. Like, sure, they still have some ideas on f7, but without the queen, it's very difficult to actually get a checkmate. So, in summary, you use your queen in attacks, and you put it on open files, and or in long diagonals like bishop. Now, how to best use your king is to get it safe by castling in the opening. I'm gonna play the Italian here. Here I'll play b4, but mainline Italian is just a castle. I think. I don't know. I'm not an Italian player. You get your king safe in the opening. In the end game, you need to bring out your king. Like here, white's king has stayed in the castle, but black's king is out and ready to join the fighting. If white had moved their king out, then it's going to be able to defend against black's king and prevent it from entering, resulting in a draw. Which drawing is infinitely better than losing. And so, in summary, get your king safe in the middle game, in the opening, and bring it out in end game, because it's needed, especially